Once a giant, always a giant. For me, it's only a giant.
What's going on YouTube? Diggy546. Definitely hit that subscribe button if you're new. Like the video if you like the video. And I won't tell if you click that bell. But let's go ahead and get into this. Alright, so I did a ton of research for this video. I did a ton of film watching. And go ahead, and I already know I said leave a like in the intro. But go ahead and drop that like because I did a ton of research for this. And let's jump right into it. Giants 49ers coming off of a crazy comeback victory. The Giants in the second half looked like a team to be reckoned with last week. The 49ers always look like a team to be reckoned with. But let's keep it real. The 49ers have a much better roster. The opening line for this game is the Niners are getting 10.5. The Niners are favored by 10.5 points this week against the Giants. So we are not expected to compete in this game. We're really not expected. You rarely see Vegas go double-digit points. I mean, this is like almost college kind of thing. So it's not even necessarily they don't respect the Giants. It's just the Niners are that good, and you almost expect them to roll whatever team they play against. So they rolled the Steelers, and last week the Rams hung with them for like 3 quarters, and then they just pulled away because they're just that much better of a team. So first, let's talk about the defense. Now, of course, you have Nick Bosa, you got Fred Warner, you got a ton of stars. But on that defensive line, not only is Nick Bosa the anchor on that defensive line, you also got a bunch of other guys like Kerry Hyder, who terrorized us that year that the Niners were missing a bunch of people. And they had literally all their backups in, and they blew us out with Joe Judge. Kerry Hyder was one of those guys that terrorized us. They got Eric Armstead there. They got Hargrave there, who got, I think, almost double-digit sacks last year for the Eagles. They got Kinlaw, who they drafted in the first round a couple of years ago. Drake Jackson, an edge rusher, a young guy that's been getting pressure. Cleveland Farrell, a guy that didn't work out for the Raiders, but has been really looking good on tape from what I saw these first 2 games for the Niners. And it is just going to be very difficult to do much against this defense. They play a ton of cover 4. They play some cover 3, but they play a ton of cover 4. They play some cover 6. They play some cover 2, but they just sit back there in their zone and let that 4-man rush get after you. And in the middle of that defense, the reason they're so confident just playing zone all day and letting that 4-man rush go is because they have 2 linebackers that can cover. They have Fred Warner, which everyone knows, and then they have Dre Greenlaw, who some people don't really know, but I mean, a lot of people know who he is too, and he does really great in zone coverage. They both do well in zone coverage, and they both do well in run fits, and they both do well as tacklers in the open field, and they both are great as blitzers. So almost as good as, back in the day when they had Navarro Bowman and Patrick Willis. These 2 linebackers are like the updated 2023 versions of those 2 players. So they are very difficult to deal with from an offensive perspective. And then you look at the secondary, and they have Hufanga back there, who's an all-pro. So if you weren't paying attention, the Niners have an all-pro at every level of their defense. They have an all-pro at every level of their defense, and then they have Pro Bowlers there. And they got everything out there on that team. So this is going to be a tall task. Now, I would say their only weakness is the corners. You got Gibson, who's the other safety besides Hufanga, but they got Charvarius Ward. They got Deommodore Lenoir. So those 2 aren't really dominant corners. They got Embry Thomas. I think he's their backup slot. But those aren't really dominant corners right there on the outside. I've seen them give up plays that should be huge plays on tape, but the pass rush was already there, or the quarterback was so shell-shocked from the pass rush earlier on in the game that he just didn't notice. So there are plays to be made against these corners, but you actually have to pass protect, which is easier said than done because you just heard me name. They have literally 7 pass rushers deep. The Giants have maybe 2 or 3 pass rushers deep. They got 7. So if we can block, then things may be open against those corners. Now, Matt Stafford last week was surgical on tape. He threw 2 interceptions. But besides those 2 interceptions, he was surgical. He hit short pass after short pass. He literally made the right read on almost every single play. for the Rams. I mean, he didn't miss. He didn't leave much on the bone, and he was literally throwing it to Puka, Tutu. It's funny they got all these receivers with 2-syllable names, but he was hitting all of the right guys, throwing it to the check down when he needed to, throwing it. I think his longest pass was 30 something yards, 31 yards, throwing it there when it was open. So he hit those underneath routes all day. They were able to run the ball just a smidge, but after hitting those underneath routes for a while, he was able to kind of settle in, and that's when he was able to hit that 30-yard pass. But guess what? Then the Niners said, we're going to stop playing cover 4, and we're just going to play press man, and even if our guys get beat, the pass rush is going to get there. So they just couldn't sustain it. And if you look at a play here, I'll probably have it up. Matt Stafford could not sustain that level of play, and then on top of that, he starts throwing interceptions. I mean, it's very difficult to play perfect football against this defense. The pass rush is too good. The safety Hufanga is good. The linebackers are too good. There's just so much room for error that they are just going to be a team that gets a ton of turnovers. So the Niners offense is the second part of the story, because I just went and talked about their defense, and that's a defense that's good enough to probably be a team that's a playoff team already because of that defense. Then you look at the Niners offense, and it's even arguably more scary. First of all, you got the mastermind, Kyle Shanahan, who I think anytime he's a coach of a team, all the players are going to play better than they would have played if they just played for a normal human being kind of a coach. Brock Purdy is a 7th-round pick, Mr. Irrelevant, last pick in the draft. And he looks amazing. He rarely makes mistakes. He rarely does anything wrong. And he's just starting to look like more of a game manager. He's actually making plays down the field. And it's like Purdy has got to have something to him, because he's looking better than a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo. He's looking better than a guy like Trey Lance. Trey Lance never looked good, but not everybody has succeeded at a high level. But Brock Purdy has really done more than enough to be a good quarterback for the Niners. And he has not lost a regular season game yet. And that's not an accident. This team is stacked. Then you have Trent Williams, the monster that Giants fans know about from his time in Washington. And they run behind Trent Williams over and over and over again. They will not stop running behind him, and teams usually can't block it, even though you know that they're going to run to that left side a good amount of time that game. And you see they get big plays from it. Then they have McCaffrey, who you saw, he's making plays, and he's not going down from arm tackles. He is tough to bring down in that aspect of being a powerful guy. And then he's also shifty. He can also make people miss. He can also catch like a receiver. He's one of the only running backs that I've seen. A lot of people say this running back could play receiver. No, Christian McCaffrey can legitimately play slot receiver in this league and be a Pro Bowler at it. So he is a problem. And then you add in Pro Bowl tight end, Kittle, and a Pro Bowl fullback who could probably be a Pro Bowl tight end, and Kyle Juszczyk. So all of these players, and then you add in Deebo Samuel, who I'll get to, Deebo and Ayuk. Deebo Samuel and the rest of all these players, Deebo Samuel can be used interchangeably with Christian McCaffrey. They both can play receiver. They both can play running back. Same thing with Kittle and Juszczyk. They both can play tight end. They both can play fullback. They're both elite blockers. They're both great catchers of the football. They're both good after the catch. And it's the exact same thing with Deebo and McCaffrey, which allows Kyle Shanahan to come out there and literally come out. He can come out 3 wide. He can line up Kittle in the tight slot. And then he can completely change the formation and bring Deebo into the backfield, or he can bring Kittle into the backfield, use him as a fullback, and he can turn a shotgun into an I formation with the same personnel. So this team is very difficult to scheme for. It's very difficult to stop. And it is a constant chess match because they have so many pieces that can do pretty much everything out there on the field. So how do you stop this offense? And I forgot to mention Ayuk before I get to that. Brandon Ayuk has emerged as a pure route running wide receiver that can make plays down the field. And Deebo can do that too, but Ayuk is kind of doing that to the next level. He's beating one-on-one coverage consistently, and he's making plays. So, again, how do you stop this offense? You hope they have a bad day. Literally, that's it. I would say you get pressure, you do it, but they have so many ways of doing things that they can just switch the way they play the game in the middle of the game. So you got to hope they just kind of have an off day. So that's the 49ers in a nutshell. They are extremely talented. They literally have all pros all over the field. They can field a Pro Bowl roster and actually have legitimate Pro Bowlers and all pros all over the field. So before I touch on our possible path to victory, I want to talk about a sponsor here on the channel, Underdog Fantasy. And last week, I told people to pick higher in their pick 'em for Daniel Jones on 35.5 rushing yards. And he obviously did that. He ran for 50 rushing yards in the second half last week. So if you did that, you made something. You got something out of it. So I definitely suggest, again, I just won 200 and a pick 'em using this using Daniel Jones having higher than 35.5 rushing yards. So you might want to start paying attention to the free game I'm giving you. Now, my underdog locks and pick 'em this week are going to be DJ getting higher than 7 rushing attempts. I just know the pass rush is going to be coming. DJ is going to have to escape. I see at least 7 rushing attempts. I think he may be up around that 12 level. And also the 49ers in the past have struggled against running quarterbacks. We have got to find a way to generate a running game. Besides conventionally, we got to get creative. So DJ higher than 7 rushing attempts. Waller higher than 4 catches. I think Waller is going to be that guy that Puka was this guy for Matt Stafford. I think Waller will be that guy who gets open very quickly for Daniel Jones. And I think he'll at least have those 4 catches. I think he may be a guy that gets like 7 or 8 or 9 catches. This may be his biggest game so far, even if it's not in a winning effort. And then lastly, with the blitz coming from our side, because I know we're going to get aggressive this week, I got McCaffrey getting higher than 4 catches. I just see him getting the ball dumped off to him. He's going to run routes. I think 4 catches is a very easy kind of thing to expect McCaffrey to get. So you can use code DIGGE, DIGGE, to get 100% match to all the way up to $100 in Underdog Fantasy. Again, if you put in $5, $10, all the way up to $100, they will match it. And jump right in and use these 3 locks, put in $5, and you're going to win something from it. So that's my takes for Underdog Fantasy this week. Let's get straight to the Giants game plan. The best way that the Giants can possibly win this game. First off, they have to play mistake-free football. You cannot turn the ball over. And if you do turn the ball over, make it a play that they made. Don't make it a play that you made. Don't make it a bad play that you made. So you cannot turn the ball over. You cannot have mess ups on special teams. You just cannot afford for that to happen. You got to be on your best behavior against the 49ers and preferably get a turnover, whether it's a forced fumble or an interception. I mean, Purdy never makes mistakes, but preferably try to get a turnover. On top of that, it's going to be very difficult. But on the defensive side, I want to start with we have got to make sound tackles. We have got to be disciplined in the run game. We've got to keep contained. We have got to be able to fill those run gaps and actually not overshoot them. Fill the run gaps. Don't be a hero. Everybody has to be, rushing and being around the football every single snap when you got guys like McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel and even Ayuk. I want to see 3 people making every tackle. That's the only way. That's the type of intensity that we need to have coming into this game. Ayuk may miss this game. He may miss this game because he's dealing with a shoulder, and he may miss this game. And if he does, I think that kind of gives us an advantage. And this is me just saying this. This could go a completely different way. But I think our rookie corners and Adoree Jackson can probably match up a little bit better against Deebo and then guys like Ray McCloud. So I think our defense can match up against these wide receivers if Ayuk is out. If Ayuk is in, I think he's a very, very big problem for us. But if he's out, I think our secondary, as far as the corners, can match up against these wide receivers, and we can really try to lock in. But also, you got to deal with Kittle. You got to deal with McCaffrey as a receiver. But as far as the wide receivers go, if we can get ahead and we can kind of focus more on Kittle and focus on Deebo, very tough to do, even in that situation. But I think that gives us a much better opportunity if IU ends up not playing. Now, also, another weakness here, one of their left, I think their right guard this past week, he moved from tackle to right guard for them last week, but their right guard last week had a 0 pass block grade. And PFF, I don't really put too much stock in it, but even looking at the tape, he was not good. Their guards in general are not dominant pass protectors. They're not those types of guys in the pass game. So if Dex and Leo pick any day to take over a game and show up and really cause mayhem, it's this day, because the guards are going to be able to be had. If they can do that and make Brock Purdy make a couple of mistakes, this game could possibly be within reach. So we need our big time players to show up. Both of those guys are getting paid over $22 million a year. They have got to show up right here in this game if we have any shot at winning. And then on offense, we got to let DJ let it rip. He has got to come to play. He has got to be the guy that we paid. He's got to be the guy from that second half. He's got to make smart decisions. He's got to run when he needs to. He's got to pass when he needs to. But I think we got to take the training wheels off. Playing safe is not going to get it done. Teams have been sitting on these play action boots and these underneath routes this entire season so far. So air it out. And once they start to back off, then you can throw underneath, get some yak. And once they start to come back up, go back over the top. And when everything is covered, take off and run, because that's something the 49ers have not been able to deal with as of late. Over the last couple years, they haven't been able to deal with these mobile quarterbacks. So those are really the biggest paths to victory that I can think of. We have to play perfect. We cannot turn that ball over. We've got to make plays from our big-time players to try to force a turnover. And DJ has to be a $46 million quarterback. He has to play lights out. He has to be a great player. He's got to walk away from that game, and people have to say, this Daniel Jones guy really went out there and won that game over a team that's much better than his. But those are my takes on tomorrow's game. I'm really excited. I just want to see if we can be competitive in this game, because I think if this team goes in there and we only lose by 4 points, more victories people say aren't real, but I think they are real, because you see how big confidence is with how we played the first 6 quarters of the game. Once we got our confidence back, we looked like a completely different team. So if we can play with this team and stay in there with them, even if we lose, I think it's a big sign that this Giants team can actually be a pretty good team this year. So you guys let me know what you're thinking of the Niners tomorrow. What's your score predictions? What are you thinking? And let's just hope that this doesn't end up being another massacre in prime time for the New York Giants. If you made it this deep into the video, come on, just hit the subscribe button. I make Giants content primarily, draft content secondarily, and during the season, I'm going to be doing a lot of reacting to pretty much most of the NFL games and everything NFL. So if you made it this deep, go ahead and join the D6 squad.